Story 1. Mr. Morris. Delivery for Mr. Morris. I knocked on the door again. Delivery for Mr. Morris. I slipped off my backpack and began to unzip it when the door squeaked open. In the dimness of the apartment, I found a pair of light blue eyes below a shock of white hair. Deep wrinkles snaked through a face that was clearly sleep-deprived. Not that I cared about this guy's sleep habits. This was my last delivery, until I was free for the day. "Are you Mr. Morris?" I asked. I reached into my backpack to fetch his delivery, but my progress was halted when the door flung open and Mr. Morris grabbed my shoulders and threw me into his apartment. My nose crashed into hardwood so violently I tasted blood, and my eyes didn't adjust right away to my new dark environment. All I heard was the slamming of a door followed by a succession of dead bolts being engaged. I felt the fabric of my backpack on my stomach as I lay sprawled on my belly. Then there was pain in my ankle. "Throw the backpack over there," Mr. Morris demanded. "What the fuck are you doing?" Mr. Morris applied more pressure with his boot, and my ankle screamed in pain. "Throw it!" he yelled. My sight had adjusted by now, but I didn't need my eyes to feel the cold steel pressed against the back of my head. The vibrations of a gun being cocked seemed to reverberate through my skull. It was enough to scare me into submission. I wrestled my backpack from under my weight, then tossed it down the short hallway. A robbery. This was a fucking robbery. This was my final delivery of the day before I was free to do whatever I wanted. And now look at what happened. Side hustles can really become a pain in the ass sometimes. "On your feet," the old man demanded. Up, hurry, go into the living room." I kept my composure as best as possible. I wanted to yell out in the hopes a neighbor would hear and call the police. However, having a pistol pointed to the back of your head really keeps your lips pinched together. "Take a left. Here, keep going." Sporadically placed lamps were the only source of illumination in the place. One of the lamps flickered like it was blinking. Yellow light bounced its way across dust-covered furniture and old wallpaper. But the more I walked, the more I realized the scale of this apartment. It was huge by New York City standards and must have cost a fortune. I also noticed how cluttered the place was. Every surface was littered with books, documents, and folders. A large world map hung against one wall and was decorated with pins and string. There were empty pizza boxes stacked in one corner. One table supported a small army of empty whiskey bottles. This guy was clearly a paranoid hermit and mentally unwell. I didn't even know Mr. Morris, but I felt a burning hatred for the man. "The chair. Sit." I sat and followed his orders to place my hands through the cross rails of the chair back. Coarse rope was dragged across my wrists, then through parts of the chair before being secured in place with a sturdy knot. I was now bound and helpless in this psycho's apartment. Mr. Morris approached his army of whiskey bottles and, acting like a general, selected a soldier for another mission. He twisted off the cap and finished the dregs of the bottle, wiping his mouth with his forearm. Then he squatted down next to me. "What are you doing here?" I stared straight into his light blue eyes. "I'm delivering your package, or gift, or envelope. Whatever the fuck you ordered is what I'm delivering, dude. Take my backpack and just let me go." The man stank. It was a putrid mixture of body odor, stale alcohol, and something sweet like perfume. I felt nauseous. "I didn't order anything." I nodded toward his empty bottles. "Maybe you got drunk and forgot you ordered something from Amazon. Happens all the time. Just untie me and we can work this out." He reached across me and I froze. Was he going to hurt me? Torture me? Was he going to force me to transfer all my money to an offshore bank account? No, all he did was turn on a nearby lamp. I wish he hadn't. The new light allowed me to see the woman tied up on the couch. Her hands and legs were bound and a gag had been inserted into her mouth. Our eyes met, and a look of complete horror washed over her face. She began to whimper and shake her body, but the knots held. My bladder did not. Warm piss soaked through my pants, and unbidden tears rolled down my cheeks. The weight of my situation suddenly became heavier. Mr. Morris was not only mentally unwell, he was downright evil. "Please let me go. I won't tell anyone." He slapped me across the face so hard my nose began to bleed again. "What's your name and where are you from?" Mr. Morris asked. I don't know." An excruciating headache bored into my brain. "I just want to leave." He stared at me impatiently. "What's your name and where are you from?" "John." "I'm John and I'm from here." "Where is here?" "What? Where are you from?" "Here, in fucking New York City, you crazy son of a bitch." The woman on the couch was twisting her body, trying desperately to wrench free from her binds. Her muffled screams were barely louder than a whisper. I could smell the sweetness of her perfume waft in my direction. It was a terrible contradiction. That sweet scent should be in a park somewhere, or party, enjoying the freedom of the day, not here. Mr. Morris paced to the wall covered by a giant world map. He He found another bottle of whiskey nearby and started taking small sips while he placed a pin on the map directly on New York City. Pins marked different areas all over the country. Deranged notes were scribbled in the oceans. The old man disappeared down the hall and was out of sight. I took the time to get the woman's attention. "I'm going to get you out of here," I whispered. She nodded, but there was no faith in it. She didn't believe me, and to be honest, I wasn't sure I believed myself. "I promise," I added. It was more of a promise to myself to keep fighting, to find a way out of this. Mr. Morris returned with my backpack in tow. He unzipped it and pulled out my wallet. A quick scan of the contents left him unimpressed. "You're John? From New York?" "Yeah, you can keep the debit card and credit cards. I'll tell you the passwords." He took something out, then tossed my wallet aside. "You don't know the passwords." My face scrunched into confusion. "What? Yes, I do." "What's your debit card password then?" "The PIN number is, wait, give me a second. I must have hit my head harder than I thought. Just let me think for a second." And it was the truth. The mental fog of my attack and the high-stress situation had deteriorated my memory. I couldn't even think of a 4-digit number I'd used hundreds of times. Mr. Morris approached me, then knelt down beside me again. His eyes were no longer blue, but amber in the dim lamplight. Something resembling pity shrouded his face. "I want to tell you something, John from New York. Something that is going to be difficult for you to believe, but you must believe it. If you don't, then I have to kill you." "Oh God, oh God." Tears rolled down my cheeks. My nose had stopped dripping and all I could smell was dried blood and the old man's odor. Overwhelming fear clutched my spine and refused to release me. I was going to die here. "I don't want to kill you. You don't deserve that. It's not your fault that you're here." I looked up at him with an accusatory glare. He frowned. "It's not my fault either. Like I told you, I didn't order anything to be delivered to my residence." Then whose fault is it?" He breathed deeply. Then he patted my knee like a comforting grandfather. "You've been seized by the shepherds." My headache spiraled into a full-blown migraine. "The shepherds?" "That's what I call them." Mr. Morris stood and raked a pale hand through his white hair. "Humans have called them different names over the centuries, but it doesn't matter what we call them. Their desires never change. Please, let me go. You're not making sense." The shepherds view humans as tools, as a means to an end. They want to craft the world to their liking, and have been doing so since humans lived in caves. From my research, I've learned a lot about them. That's why they view me as a threat. Mr. Morris pointed to his massive collection of documents, books, paperwork, and folders. He was obsessed with this wild idea that he was espousing. I pulled against the rope around my wrists, but it was still taut. I had to get out of here. Mr. Morris showed me a book. It was a very old book, judging by the worn, yellowed paper and leather binding. He flipped through the pages while continuing his incoherent ramblings. This ancient book was difficult to find and pricey, but it's been invaluable to my education on the shepherds. They consist of a coterie of ancient entities untethered to the rules of known science. They use humans as pawns, feeding on our memories and psyche until their rot is so deep that they can influence our physical movements and birth false memories that we believe. That's why you're here, Marcus. You're under the spell of the shepherds. "Marcus? I'm John. I told you that. You're having a manic episode." Mr. Morris proffered the item he'd taken out of my wallet. It was my driver's license. I noticed my photo first, and it was the same face I'd seen every day in the mirror. It was a New York license, too. Then I saw the name, Marcus Brooks. "No," I mumbled. "That doesn't make sense. You must have changed something on my license." "I didn't do anything to it." Mr. Morris squatted down again and patted my leg. "Think about it, Marcus. Why are you here?" "I'm John. Stop calling me Marcus." "Why are you here? Why did you knock on my door?" "To deliver something to you, dude. That's all I'm here to fucking do. Let me go." "Think harder, Marcus. How did you get here? How did you start your day? Are you married? Kids? What's your occupation? Where did you go to high school?" I attempted to answer. My lips even moved to form sentences, but nothing came out. My mind refused to provide any answers. I had no idea how I got here, or what started my journey. All personal memories seemed to be buried so deep that I couldn't recall them. Married, kids, sexual orientation, favorite band, favorite food, my first job, hobbies. I knew nothing about myself except for one thing that kept drilling into the front of my mind. All I knew was that I had one goal: to finish my delivery to Mr. Morris. Then I would be free for the day. "The shepherds have seized you, Marcus, but there is time. You can come back from it. All you have to do is concentrate." Mr. Morris had my backpack again. He held it upside down and the contents fell out. A few $20 bills fluttered to the floor, as did some granola bars and a water bottle. Then a pistol. "Holy shit!" I yelled. "I don't own a gun. I have no idea where that came from." Mr. Morris picked it up, checked it, then put it on a table. "It's loaded. This is the delivery that was meant for me, Marcus. The shepherds utilized you to come here and kill me." The tears were back. "No, no, no, that's impossible. I don't even fucking know you. I would never do that." "It's not you, Marcus. It's the shepherds. They used you as a soldier in their game to assassinate me. They sent her to do the same thing." I turned to the woman on the couch. She'd stopped struggling and was listening to our conversation. The look of complete horror and confusion was still written across her face. She didn't believe a word of what was going on. I wish I could have said the same thing, but the more Mr. Morris talked, the more sense he made. Mr. Morris tapped on the woman's feet, and she recoiled in repulsion. "She came to my place last night. Luckily, I was able to stop her before she used the knife in her purse. I gave her the same lecture I'm giving you, Marcus. However, she's too far gone. The shepherds have buried too deep into her psyche. They must have been working on her for months." "How?" I asked. "How can someone tell when the shepherds select them?" "It starts with small things, subtle hints, like when you spot a dark figure out of the corner of your eye, or when you experience those random moments of tinnitus. Then comes the déjà vu, then dreamless sleep. Those are the initial signs that the shepherds are targeting you mentally. Another method to track their attacks is to be mindful of items that use electricity or magnets. Phones lose service, light bulbs flicker, anything with a computer system might glitch. For some reason, their powers affect electronics. There are signs, and I've spent my entire life studying them. That's why the shepherds can't control me. I know the signs to look for. That's also why they want me dead. I'm a threat. They are fearful that I will expose them to the public, so they select random people to control to find me." Now my mind was spinning. Mr. Morris was becoming more and more convincing, but the rational part of me understood this all to be bullshit. The psycho had me and a girl bound inside his apartment. I had to get free. I had to rescue this woman. There was only one thing I could do. "I believe you." Mr. Morris regarded me with hesitation. "You do?" I nodded. "Yes, I'm not sure about the details, but everything you've said rings true. I don't know who I am or why I'm here. I'm not even sure what part of New York we're in right now." "We're not in New York. We're in Dallas, Texas." "Dallas?" I bit my lip to keep from screaming. I've never been to Texas before. I'm sure I would remember driving to Dallas from New York. However, I kept my cool. "I don't care where we are, but I do care about the truth, Mr. Morris. I can help you. I believe you. I'm sure it's been a long time since you've had an associate." "Associate?" "Yeah, someone to confide in, someone to bounce ideas off of, someone to teach. I want to learn from you, Mr. Morris. Untie me and let's get to work. We can stop the shepherds, together." The stinky old man kneaded his hands together while scanning me up and down. "Do you remember that you're Marcus?" he asked. "Yes, I'm Marcus Brooks. I was under the spell of something evil, but I'm not now." Mr. Morris picked at his bottom lip, thinking over my proposition. Then, to my surprise, he began to loosen the rope around my wrists. "Marcus," he said while unfastening the knot, "I have so much to teach you. Together we can stop the shepherds and put an end to their vile plans." He didn't get a chance to finish his statement before his lips were busted by one of my elbows. It was time to escape. He fell to the ground holding his mouth while I raced to the pistol. It felt cold and pleasant in my hands, like a special delivery just for me. Mr. Morris was an easy target lying there on his dusty floor. I aimed the pistol and put pressure on the trigger, but I didn't pull it. I don't care what this crazy old man said. I wasn't here to assassinate anyone, especially someone I didn't know. All his insane rants and ramblings might seem intelligent to the foolish, but not to me. I wasn't going to kill this guy and go to prison for the rest of my life. Instead, I used the gun as a threat to keep him on the ground while I untied the poor woman. Once I ungagged the woman, her panicked breaths and appreciative thank yous melted my heart. She was free, and my promise to her was fulfilled. I grabbed her hand and led her through the cluttered living room and toward the exit. Before we escaped, I turned to make sure our abductor wasn't following us. Mr. Morris lay on the ground, holding his mouth. Then he pointed to me. "Wait, no!" He was pointing behind me. I didn't see the lamp crash into the back of my head, but I sure as hell felt it. I tumbled to the ground and the pistol fell out of my grasp. The woman immediately picked it up and sprinted to Mr. Morris. There were no final words of explanation, no evil speech or diatribe. The woman simply pumped every round into Mr. Morris's head, turning his face into red, meaty pulp. The gunshot blast echoed around the apartment, and I heard neighbors scream in response. There was no doubt that the police would soon be on their way. The woman came my way, and I expected her to hurt me. She didn't. She stepped over me like she was in some kind of trance, then raced to the kitchen. As I found my balance, I heard her rummaging through cabinets and drawers. My head felt 2 sizes too big, so I leaned against the threshold of the hallway. I spotted the front door. The woman emerged from the kitchen holding a small box. She didn't look at me. She didn't say anything. Her expression was as blank as if she was staring at a wall. She held up something, then struck it against the box. A match flamed up. I only stayed in the apartment long enough to shout for her to come with me. As Mr. Morris's documents and books and folders burned, the woman merely stared at the rising fire, not even changing her expression as the flames licked her feet and began to bubble the skin on her legs. She ignored my pleas to help her, so I ran. I unlocked the door and dashed down the hallway. I smelled like smoke, and the neighbors in the hallway got a good look at my face while I made my getaway. I sprinted down the staircase until I found the sidewalk. Then I ran until my lungs burned. I stopped at a corner and looked at the nearby buildings to get my bearings, but nothing looked like New York. Then I spotted Reunion Tower, the famous building in Dallas, Texas. Shit, Mr. Morris was right. No memories came back to me. The name Marcus Brooks didn't ring any bells. I didn't remember my family or friends. I had no idea how the hell I got to Dallas. I couldn't remember my last job or meal. I was lost physically and mentally. I turned into an alley and leaned against a dumpster. I wept and begged for all this to be over while police sirens whined in the distance. My mind raced with questions about what Mr. Morris had explained to me. Then I bolted upright when I saw someone. Wait, no, it wasn't someone, just a shadow in the corner of my eye. So that was pretty much it. Would you like to see video like this one story at a time, or different horror and creepy stories in one video like this one? Top 5 most disturbing Reddit story ever.